Hello and welcome to the Governance and Testing course. In the first video, we are going to look into a little bit of governance, and we are going to be doing that by checking out the roles and rights for our permission for our application. So let's dive into a little bit of governance. So first things first. Within our application, we have roles and permissions. As a user, you are automatically an admin. So let's open up the user admin to make sure that we can see this. So the user segment allows us to view the users that we have invited. And well, as a test, I have invited some users, but there is only one person with the admin role, and that is my account. And if I open up my account, there are no other roles that I can currently choose from. I would like to add a new role, employee, and allow my other users to use the application as an employee. And with that, I want them to see different things than what I as an admin can see. This way we can sort of govern and restrict the things that users can see that they are not allowed to see. And we can start doing that by creating new roles. And the roles and permissions segment is in the toolbox. Here you can open up the roles and permissions, and you can see the two existing roles, admin and public, and we can add the new role called employee. I can press create role, and employee is immediately added. Well, when a new role is added, it is immediately added with all permissions available, but maybe we do not want this. So I can say, you know what, I don't want an employee to be able to read, to see its role. I also don't want the employee to be able to see users other than itself. So I'm going to set up a filter. So the ID from the user needs to equal the Betty user, that's the login that we use, its ID. So now the user ID, when both IDs are the same, so when my colleague's ID and the user ID are both the same, so it is actually my colleague looking at the application, only then the data is allowed to show. And for the next stuff, I'm slowly going to add these permissions, and I'm going to change it while we are going to be inviting a new user. So let's first make sure that we invite a new user, and we can do that by going to our account, opening up the My Betty Blocks view, and opening up the hamburger menu and pressing the user management segment. But first things first, we are going to add a new user that we can give this employee role. So let's dive into My Betty Blocks. We can do that by going to the account settings in the bottom left and then opening up My Betty Blocks. Here we see some information regarding our application, and we can add new users by opening up the hamburger menu and going to the user management. First things first though, we cannot add regular users because for that we need to put our application status to live. Since we are working with test environments, I would recommend to just keep it in development, and instead of adding live users, we are going to add someone with a different builder role. So I'm going to invite a second account of mine, and I'm going to give this user the citizen developer role. This way the user will have a Betty Blocks account and will be able to log in, but we don't have to put any information live yet. Since we're just working with a test account, or with a test application, a project management application, it shouldn't always be difficult, but just a little reminder that we are still working with security, so always be careful when working with these kind of toggles. Add an account of yourself, maybe add an account of your colleague as a citizen developer, and I'm going to press send invite, and I now am going to open up the invite, make sure that the user goes through the login, and then I'm going to show you what it would look like if this user would open up the account after they have created it. So I'm back and I have added an account as employee. I've added some accounts I've been testing around because I needed to fix a second account for myself, and I have added a test account. as employee to the application and in an incognito mode, because otherwise I would not have been able to show it to you at the same time. I now have a look at what this user would be able to see. So let's just see what happens if I go to the buttons over here. Let's first go to the task overview. You can see the task overview. I can see the user management, but I can only see my own user, and I cannot see the roles because we have said no employees, you cannot look into the roles. If I open up the project overview, I can see all of the items over here. If I press start project or view the project, update the project, let's see, can we set the status to do? Press send, then I am unauthorized. And that is exactly what we want, because we have said you are not allowed to do this because you are an employee. But we can change some of these items by diving into our application and the actions. Because what if I would want a new employee to be able to create their own projects and maybe update their own projects, not the ones from other people, but their own. Well, first of all, we can do this by diving into the pages that we have, such as the project create page. Let's look at the permissions. So we can open up the create action. We can go into the settings and permissions. And here you can see that the employee, let's also make sure that the authentication profile is set properly, that the employee is not allowed to create projects. Well, now the employee is allowed to create projects, but the employee is not allowed to use those quick buttons. Let's also move into our project detail page. Open up the dialog, because this is where our other item is. Let's see, there we go, the update. And we also want the employee to be able to update their projects. Press save. Now I'm going to go back into the page. Let's have a look. Let's turn this off. And the last thing I would like to do is make sure that an employee can also create their own tasks. Dive into the task settings. And an employee can now also create their own tasks. Well, and that's basically the functionality we wanted. So I've made all these changes on this side. Let's go into the items that we have in the incognito tab. Create a project. A project created by my colleague. I'm just going to give it a vague title, but at least that will help us remember that this is created by another account. And it also filters immediately on the test account and not on the main account. Whereas if I were to log in with my admin account and create a new project, project create, show the user, I have a lot of different users to choose from because of the filter that we have set. So I can only select myself, press send, and now let's look into the projects. And we can see a project created by the colleague. So let's move away from the incognito tab and open up what that would look like for our admin. So this is the admin view. The admin can now see the project created by my colleague, and I can press start, finish, and delete. And the colleague in incognito modus can press start and finish, but cannot use those quick buttons because on the action themselves, we have not given them the permission to do so. They can, however, within the page over here, now say in progress, send, and update everything on the page. The reason I am explaining this to you step by step is because I want you to see what the impact of these changes have on the user. Because we can also say, what if I don't want the employee to be able to see projects that they are not the project lead of? Well, we can open up our roles and permissions. And for the employee role, we can also say, well, I only think that you are allowed to view the project if you are the project lead. And we can do that by going from our project to the user ID. So make sure that project user, the owner of the project, ID equals Betty user ID. So apply, press save. And now if I would refresh this page, then all of a sudden the two projects that my colleague is the owner of will disappear. And now I can only view the project that my test account owns. And let's also make sure that for tasks, the same thing is done. So over task, we have a project and a project owner, and the project owner has an ID, and that project owner ID needs to be the same as the ID of the user that is logged in. So there we go. This means that now only the tasks will show that are, well, basically that belong to the project and that belong to the owner of the person that is logged in. So let's open up our regular admin view again. This is how you can set some governance. So make sure that you play around with that, because roles and permissions immediately, there isn't a lot you can do wrong, except make sure that you always keep your admin role set up with full permissions. And if you have a second account that you can just play around with, test what those roles and permissions will look like. Test if you can turn on and off those buttons, and well, run through the application as if you are the admin, and with another account as if you weren't the admin, and see what it feels like. And that is exactly what we are going to be doing in the next video. We're going to be testing the functionalities just one more time, because it is important to make sure that we test the features and functionalities and that we see what is missing. So see you there.